One more body found washed up on a beach in southern Tunisia. Dreams of immigrating to Europe often end like this one, in the hospital morgue in Zarzis. This illegal immigrant was headed to Italy. He drowned during the night when he fell out of a small boat. The traffickers were in too much of a hurry to make it to the Italian island of Lampedusa to stop and help him.
In principle, there's the National Guard and the police to prevent people from trying to go to Lampedusa. But where are they now? If the police had been there, this man wouldn't be dead. They should have saved this young man, you know what I mean?
He's angry because in only 2 months, more than 100 migrants have drowned in the sea. The police are powerless to prevent what's happening. Discredited since the revolution, they've totally disappeared from daily life. They're nowhere to be found. In Zarzis, a tourist haven near Djerba, a new authority has taken hold. Traffickers, specialists in the illegal immigration industry. In this cafe, we have a rendezvous with 2 of them. They agreed to explain how the system worked, as long as we protected their identity.
Because the police are gone, it's easier. It's like a travel agency. You bring the people, put them in a house. Then when the boss says, okay, now it's time to go, you take them in a truck and put them in a boat, and then it takes off. After 24 hours, they're in Italy. 3 days later, they're in Paris.
A travel agency with mafia leanings. At 2,000 dinars, or about 1,000 euros a passage, the market is very lucrative. After dark, the 2 men took us to one of the many houses in Zarzis, where those hoping to make the trip were hiding.
We've put up with a lot. That's the reality of being illegal. A lot of waiting and stress.
Stress from being crammed together. Inside the house, there's around 40 men. Some have waited for days. This evening, they're in a good mood. They're hoping that tonight, they'll leave for Lampedusa.
We've left parents behind, children as well. But we're eager to leave because there's nothing here. Nothing. There's no work. It's dead everywhere.
I'm very happy. It's a dream. I've lived here 26 years, and I've never been able to find a job.
Almost all of these men come from the same neighborhood, from the same family. Mokhtar is the oldest, and he makes the introductions.
A cousin, another cousin, a distant cousin.
Mokhtar has already worked in France, more than 10 years as a mason, without work papers. His cousins are woodworkers, computer programmers, and restaurant owners. With the help of friends and family already in France, all of them hope to find work in the black market. 2 months before, they filled the ranks of protesters that brought down the old regime. Today, President Ali is gone, but they aren't waiting around to see what happens next.
Here in Tunisia, we hope that the economy is going to take off again and that the revolution will not be in vain. Illegals aren't leaving to flee their country. We're leaving because the economy's collapsed since the revolution, and we're going to Europe to try to restart the Tunisian economy. And we want Tunisia to be #1 in the world.
Here's the youth that made the revolution. Thank God they brought down the old regime. And working together, we can do something to restart the Tunisian economy and make it like it was before.
But Mohamed and his cousins are going to have to wait a while longer to leave Tunisia. A few minutes later, the head trafficker shows up bearing bad news. Their departure's been canceled. They won't be leaving this evening. Some want to be reimbursed so they can take their chances elsewhere right away.
No cameras.
The discussions take place behind closed doors. To understand what's driving these men to leave their country in the wake of the revolution, we retrace their steps to their hometown of Tatouine, in the middle of the desert, 500 kilometers south of Tunis. It's here that Aladdin, the youngest in the group, grew up He spent his childhood without his father, who's been living in France for 20 years. They stay in touch through the internet.
God willing, I'll find work after a couple of months.
You know what it's like to be illegal. It means you don't have working papers. No one will offer you a job. You have to work under the table. And you'll see that it's miserable in France as well.
God willing, I'm going to make it, and when I'm in France, I'll find a job. And if I don't find one, I'll come back.
But the problem is that you can't get her by ship or plane. You're going to be in a rickety little boat.
Yes, Dad, but God will protect us.
But no, you have no idea of the dangers involved.
Despite his father's fear, leaving is the only way out for Aladdin. He shows us his computer degrees, which are useless in Tunisia.
I finished my training, but I couldn't find a job. And even with the seal from the government on the diploma.
Mohamed faces the same dilemma. Despite the revolution, his life hasn't changed. He's forced to make a living selling contraband gas, a few liters that he brings in illegally from Libya, to resell in Tunisia.
That's why I want to leave for Italy or Europe. I've been doing this for a long time. It's illegal, but you've seen how we live. It's too hard. I have no other choice. That's why I have to do it. Even though it's illegal, I don't have any other job.
Small jobs that help Mohamed make ends meet. Things are more complicated for his cousin Hamza. He's 26 years old and he's almost always been unemployed.
Yeah, they said they've gone from Italy to France. Is it true or not?
On the other end of the line, friends who've just arrived in Europe. Impatient, Hamza can't wait for the situation to get better in Tunisia.
It's a nightmare. What kind of life is this? Every day in a cafe. Before, I worked from time to time. But now, how am I going to start a family? Have children? A girlfriend? When and how? In a cafe?
In the evening, the group gathers at Mokhtar's house to eat. They've just found out that a boatload of illegal immigrants capsized at sea. 35 of the 40 passengers are dead, but the news doesn't dampen their motivation.
Obviously, it makes me feel bad for the people who've died, but that doesn't affect us either way. If there's a boat leaving right away, we leave right away.
Final prayers before the crossing, set for the next day. To film the crossing, we gave them a camera. But the trip didn't unfold quite the way they had hoped.
Back to square one. There's a storm. Back to square one. The storm, the storm.
Back to square one after 11 hours at sea.
In an hour, we're going to head back.
The boat is in bad condition, and it's taking on water.
The boat's busted too.
It's what?
It's busted.
No choice but to turn around and head back to Tunisia.
Look, feel it. There's water. It's wet.
In the middle of the day, aground on a beach that's normally full of tourists. The passengers climb out of the overloaded fishing boat. One after the other, they all get out to wait until the boat's repaired. An hour later, some are ready to leave on the same boat. But it's a waste of time. After another attempt, the boat returns to the beach for the last time. On the same beach, we find Hamza the next day. After the accident, the traffickers refused to give him his money back. But at least he's alive. He didn't drown.
I was worried about dying. Yes. The traffickers told us that the weather was good. It's good, they said. You can go. Bon voyage. But when I got on the boat, I could see that it was very old, without a mechanic, and we were really disappointed. Really disappointed.
It was the end of Hamza's European dream, but it was just a missed opportunity for his cousins. Mokhtar keeps trying, without the group. It's 10 days later.
You have to be careful. Just 3 people up front. The others, they have to stay hidden.
Thanks to some friends, he was able to get another 1,000 euros to pay for the crossing. This time it works. Finally, in the early morning, he's in the back of a van that's taking him to a boat.
Careful. Keep the curtain closed on the window.
Keep your heads down. Lower your head.
Careful, careful.
And they're not the only ones leaving. Others trying to flee the country are making their way to the center of town in a well-organized convoy of trucks. This time, the traffickers choose the most practical launch point, right in the middle of the port in Zarzis, on a pier normally reserved for fishermen. 100 people line up. They fill the boat with water and food. And then the passengers. More than 100 people on board as the boat sets out to the open sea. Direction Lampedusa, 140 kilometers away. It's a 20-hour trip to Europe. The beginning of a voyage like so many others since the fall of Ben Ali. That same morning, at least 800 refugees of the revolution fled a life without hope in Tunisia.